that's going to give us lots of time for our presentation this month. So we're going to talk about cruising in the South Sound and some favorite spots of some of our keelboat skippers that they've selected and where they like to go. So first off, talk about why the South Sound. What are the advantages of it? Personally, I think it's got a lot going for it because it is much quieter than the San Juans. Everybody that has a boat in Puget Sound loves to go up to the San Juans, and they are very, very busy in the summer months. The South Sound, on the other hand, is forgotten about. So there's lots of space, and it's still full of natural beauty. You have excellent views of Mount Rainier to the southeast, and then you've got the Olympics to the west and northwest. There are a number of state parks that are in the South Sound, which make it, again, a great space for natural beauty. And you'll notice that this list that people have identified, all of those are actually state parks. Most of the parks have facilities including moorage, picnic areas, vault toilets, hiking trails. Some have showers and other comfortable things to offer as well. So the four top choices from our skippers were Eagle Island, McMicken Island, Gerald Cove, and Hope Island.
So, some general questions. Is it shallower down south? That's the sounders.
The charts.
It
And
can be, but not
necessarily, but there
necessarily.
are, just like in the San Juans, there's some very shallow bits too. So, but
As with anywhere,
Going
paying
south
attention to
here.
your charts and planning is extremely important. You know, there are plenty of shoals throughout the region, but I wouldn't say that there's more necessarily in the south, unless you're getting like up into the head of some of the inlets, in which case South Sound is of course well known for shellfish.
like Bud Inlet, if you're going into Columbia, which I highly recommend, really gotta follow the channel. I got help, bring the chart.
Well, and
I'm just looking, soundings are in fathoms on this particular chart there, so multiplied by 6 for it.
And then, other than that, what are the winds like that?
They're the same as anywhere else. People always say, hey, Judy.
yeah, they can be substantial and they can be doldrums.
Not much good.
Yep.
I have definitely tucked in 2 reefs there, and I've tucked in 2 reefs in crossing the Strait of Juan de Fuca.
Yep.
So, and people always say, oh, there's no wind in the South Sound, but it's the same as here or, you know, right off Shulsha or up in the St. Lawrence in reality. If you really want a wild wind, just get out in the Strait of Juan de Fuca and on a hot summer afternoon, you'll get it.
And just to orient everybody where we're talking about, we've got Eagle Island is over here. We're gonna go east to west tonight. Eagle Island is this one over here on the right. McMicken is this location here. Gerald Cove up at the north end of Harstein Island, and then Hope Island is down here, basically at the Eld Inlet, and then towards the Pickering Passage. So I have not had the pleasure of going to Eagle Island yet, so I'm actually going to turn it over to John to talk about some of the particulars of Eagle.
Yeah, it is cool. You'll see the Blatch Passage here. This is McNeil Island to the north of it, and Anderson Island. So McNeil Island has and you're just moved here.
Yeah, I recognize now. I wonder, I heard about Anderson Island.
Yeah.
Huh?
And I found it's not for public access there.
McNeil is not for public access.
Yeah.
But actually.
Yes, for sexually violent predators.
And
Yeah.
Actually, they are not condemned. They push down.
It was a state penitentiary, and now I believe it's federal, if I remember
I
correctly.
think so, yeah. Anyway, there's signs all around there that said, do not come ashore. on McNeil Island.
Mhm.
But it's, the cool thing that I love about Eagle Island is you get a lot of current through Blatch Passage here. McNeil Island is essentially undeveloped. It's also a wildlife refuge. So at night, you will hear a coyote pack howling. I mean, and it just attracts a lot of birds and other wildlife. There's hundreds of harbor seals, and usually in the summertime, they're pupping on the beaches of the island, of Eagle Island there. And if you go back a slide here, you've got the shallow reef and these rocks right here. There's two mooring balls on this side, and there's usually one or two mooring balls on this side right here. But if you can get on this side, you're near that shallow reef, and there's just tons of fish, ospreys, eagles, seals. I haven't seen orcas there, but I've seen videos of orcas chasing the seals up onto the beach. The orcas will actually beach themselves as they're chasing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the wildlife is crazy there. So I think the things to look for, just remember that you've got a lot of current. There's not a really a good anchorage there, so you're depending on the quality of the state park's mooring system, which the water is super cold there, so you can go down and you can dive the thing, but you got to put some exposure protection on. So you sort of really need to have some sort of anchor alarm at least there, because I think it was, who were we chatting with about Lauren, was like pointing out some of the
We'll talk about
the
Lauren's experience a little
challenges
later.
with these things here. So here we can go through the next couple of pictures.
So we got plenty of pretty pictures to share
Yeah.
of these various sites.
So the island's really small. You can sort of walk. Oh, Brett made it. You can walk around on the beach at low tide. You just gotta make sure if the seals are pupping, then that you give them plenty of space, because it takes a lot of energy to, when they have a new pup and everything, to get up on the beach and then have to swim out when you come around and stuff like that. But there's a couple of picnic areas. There's an inland trail. And last time we were there, it was basically impassable. So yeah, but it's a super pleasant place to hang out. Beautiful picture there. You can see how narrow the water is there. That's it, sort of as the tide's coming up. Oh yeah, and you can see osprey there, and you can just, there's seals up on the beach, seals out there, just everywhere. Yeah, just super cool place, and it's real convenient. It's about it's usually like, a lot of times the last day of my trip is I'm, heading out through the Narrows, or the first day of my trip as I've gone through the Narrows.
Yeah, it's one of the closer places to the Narrows.
Yeah.
When you're trying to time the currents through the pass,
Mhm.
it's good to have close proximity, so you can get there quickly.
I can mention it. Just beautiful place. So I remember watching stars and all that stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend it.
Up next is McMicken Island. This is on the east side of Harstine Island, in the Case Inlet. The island itself is a state park. However, there is a private residence on the southern tip of the island, because it was historically, the entire island was owned privately, and then they gave the remainder of the island to the state. I believe when the next generation passes, that the entirety of it will revert to the state. But the rest of the island is open to explore. There's a trail that runs around the higher part of the island. But the thing that makes McMicken really cool is the tombolo, or this spit that connects McMicken to Harstine Island at low tide. So at high tide, it's completely submerged. You can actually take boats over it. Wouldn't recommend sailboats with a deeper draft, but dinghy is great.
That's mine.
Power boats will do it. And so this picture on the right here is looking from McMicken towards Harstine, and you can see how dry that is. So here's a comparison at a moderately low tide on the left, where you still have to get your feet wet to get between the two, versus the lower low tide, where it is completely exposed and easily walked. That brighter white section is, it's all shells. It's got a nice crunch underfoot as you go. And then on Harstein, it's tidal mudflat. So it's pretty cool to be there through a tidal cycle, and you get to see that submerged, and then you get to see it completely exposed. And it really does show you the power of tides and why you should pay really close attention to them when you're planning where you go.
I was just looking in here
Yeah, you got
to
the other notes?
see what you, if they list what the tide level is where it gets exposed. And,
Yeah, I don't think they have it in the
yeah,
book, do they?
I mean, the chart, if you go back to the chart, it shows
the
it
chart,
does dry it, that's lower low tide there, it dries, but, I know if you go to that next picture, the one that's on the left, that's one Rebecca and I took, and we actually walked from Harstein to, what's the other island?
To McMicken.
From McMicken to Harstein,
Uh-huh.
and we walked there, it was dry, but as soon as we turned around and got to the other side to come back, the tide was coming up. I think we're trying to really get there as quickly as possible so we could, because that was our opportunity to go walk the Tombolos.
Yeah, when we went to the picture on the right, okay, we're gonna look at the charts, we're gonna get this when the tide is really on its way out is when we're gonna go over, and we have plenty of time to come back without getting our feet wet.
Yeah, I got my feet wet there, but
Okay,
it
you
was,
can see
it's totally worth it.
Emily's got her sandals on, she was ready.
Yeah, I was surprised, just how quickly the tide was rising,
Yeah.
because just in the matter of, I think like maybe like 3 or 4 minutes or something, it was enough to go over the top of my shoe. So it had come up like 4 or 5 inches or something like that, just in a matter of minutes. So just amazing how powerful the tides are.
All right, up next we have Gerald Cove. Gerald Cove is found at the north end of Harstein Island. It is best accessed from the east from Case Inlet because there's a bridge on the west side of Harstein Island that is too low for most masts to get under. Gerald Cove is well protected. As you can see, it's got fingers that come down to the south and east. It has a state park on the east side, and then there is a marina on the west side of the beach. One of the nice things is that at the top of the dock on the marina side, there is a store where you can get groceries, sundries, and the highlight is shaved ice. And they've got a whole bunch of different flavors that you can choose from, which is a really nice thing to have on a hot summer day. They also have showers in both the park and at the marina. This picture here is looking from, so this park float here, this is looking south. So you can see some of the marina there on the right side of the picture, and then all of these buoys we see here are actually part of the state park. So those are state park buoys that are available in there. And then in addition to that, there's also a float for mooring that the park has. And you see that in both of these pictures. The park float has power and water available as well. And you can see here the difference between high tide and low tide. So again, pay attention, even on that float, so our boat is the one that is parked here at the end of the float on the south side. If we had parked on the north side, our keel would have been in the mud at low tide. We ended up with, I want to say, less than a half foot of clearance between the bottom of the keel and the mud at low tide. We were there, and that spot and the one immediately behind us were the two with the deepest draft available. If it's a minus tide, might not be able to fit at all. So definitely pay attention to that.
You have to reserve warrants.
You do not, it's first come, first served. So there's a bit of luck involved. But this was in August. and you can see there's still empty spots on the float and a bunch of balls that are available. That's one of the things that's great about the South Sound. You're not fighting to get a spot. There's a lot of availability. So really pretty spot. The state park has, again, trails to walk around. They've got some activities there. It is.
Yeah, we're one of the few with showers.
Yes, it has showers. The state park is also accessible by car, in contrast to some of the other islands that we've talked about. And so it has many of the amenities that you're used to with visiting a state campground. So showers, there's a park ranger that's there. They have activities for the site as well.
That cove, Gerald Cove, it's great to take a dinghy and just row around and.
Yes.
There's like some cool
So
houses
it's
and
really
stuff.
fun. This
Back up into
particular
some
arm
creeks.
right here, you can see a lot of it is dry at low tide. But at high tide, you can get all the way up into these little parts. It's quite shallow, but it's fun to explore, or poke around with a dinghy or with a kayak or sup. And same down here to the south.
Oh, I was gonna say the bridge. That
Yes.
is, goes up the Hurston Island. I've been under that bridge twice in our Catalina 27. And, on the charts, it'll say, I think it's, our mast is what, 37 or 38 feet, something like that on the Catalina 27. I believe that chart says the vertical clearance is 31 feet. So does anybody have any idea how we got 38 feet under a 31-foot bridge?
Low time.
Yeah.
And-
On the charts that mark the sound or the bridge clearances above mean
Mean high water.
higher high tide, I think, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you have to figure out what mean higher high tide is, and then, of course, the tide charts are based on mean lower low water. So figure out what that difference is and then do it at a.
And then you can make Pickering Passage work.
Yes, yeah, which is sort of fun, because I think the next one is we're going to Eagle Eye
The last one that we are going to here is Hope
or
Island.
Hope Island. Yeah.
So this inlet here to the north goes up towards Pickering Passage. So Hope Island. Historically, this was actually a homestead, but it does have an old growth forest on it. The homestead itself is still there. There's some orchards that were established when the homestead went in. And there's actually a caretaker that stays there. So interesting history. In fact, the island was only entered into the state park system in the mid 20th century, I believe,
Okay.
like 1950 or so. You can see on the chart here that there's a few charted mooring balls around, but not very many. When you come ashore, they have kiosks like this with some information about the island. And I'll tell you, it's one of the great things about it is proximity to other locations. So it's not far from Olympia. If you're going to go through the Hammersley Inlet to Shelton, it's in that direction. It's quite close to the mouth of the Hammersley Inlet. And then also the Eld Inlet, Totten Inlet, those are also quite close by. So it's really at this confluence of a lot of different channels of the Southern Sound. It is, again, like the others, it is a beautiful spot. This picture on the left is anchored on the east side of the island, flying the Renton colors with a beautiful sunset towards the Olympics. And on the right, you can see there's a trail that runs all the way around the island through the old growth forest. It's a lovely, lovely forest that's there. And then, so on the right, you can see that's the east side of the island, some Pacific Madrona on the shore there. The picture on the left, you can see some, Lauren was originally on a mooring ball. And this is the learning part of our presentation tonight. So Lauren had some really great lessons to share with all of us. He said, do not trust a mooring buoy, even if it's one maintained by the state. Most of these buoys are just concrete. So they take a big concrete block, sink it, and attach a line to it, and that's your mooring buoy. But they are not secured to the bottom. So you can imagine a large boat, high wind, it would not be hard to drag that concrete along the bottom. In addition to that, that means that they are not necessarily where they're supposed to be. So he had one that had been dragged and ended up in only 15 feet of water at high tide. You can only imagine that what the boat would look like at low tide, resting on its side. The mooring itself was completely uncovered at the time, so that was not suitable. By contrast, even 32 feet of water might not be enough. So we had a case where they had anchored in 32 feet of water and woke up in the morning and the keel is just bumping along the bottom as they sit at anchor as wakes go by. And that was still about 45 minutes before they hit the low tide for the day. Good time to make a change, right?
Yeah, because the slope comes up pretty quick there.
Yeah.
I remember, especially on the east side of the island.
If you look at the chart here, so you know there's some deeper water here off of Steamboat Island, but on the east side, there's this ridge that runs along the channel here, and the currents through here are quite substantial. You get 3 or 4 knots of current coming through here.
Yeah, you might not be able to row back to the boat.
You'll get your workout that day, for sure. So, you know, pay attention to the tides and where you're anchoring, and certainly the slope. You can see it drops off quite steeply as you get away from the island, and then it does tend to shallow out or level out a little later, but maybe out here, you're gonna have more current, more traffic, but you've got probably more consistent space for anchoring. There was another case where Lauren saw another boat dragging a mooring ball during an ebb. And they saw nearly 4 knots of current during that time. So definitely pay attention. One of the things that the state is doing right now is replacing a lot of the mooring balls throughout their system. In fact, they decommissioned, I want to say it was like 20 or so mooring balls. They are removing many of these that are the concrete blocks, and they're putting in a heli-screw type of mooring, which is then anchored into the substrate and is much more secure. It's also more friendly for the environment because it's not disturbing the growth there that's at the surface. You don't have it dragging through anything. So they are in the process of replacing many of the mooring balls, which means if your book says that there are 4 balls at that particular park or that particular anchorage, there might not be any right now. So the cruising guides, like Wagoner's, they do actually publish articles. That one, I have that one too. That one's older. But if you look there or you look at the state parks, they do have some updates about things that have been removed for replacement. But it's always good to double check that it's available and in good repair. There is actually a website that the state maintains with the status of the buoys. It's a GIS, and so mapping system that has color coding, red, green, and yellow for the various buoys that are in the state system. So green ones are supposedly in good condition, yellow ones are questionable, and the red ones are out of service. So yeah, there is information out there, but as skipper, it's your responsibility to make sure that you've found yourself good moorage, especially if you're going to be staying there overnight. But I hope you all enjoyed some glimpses of what the South Sound has to offer. It really is a beautiful place and probably underappreciated compared to a lot of the other things that we have in our local area. So I highly recommend it if you're looking for someplace to go explore. And there are many of these areas that you can access by car, even if you're not able to cruise there.
I was gonna say that orchard at Hope Island, you get there at the end of the summer. You got.
There were
you
apples
pick
on
up
the trees.
apples, Yeah.
They weren't the best, and in fact, they're there for the deer. There is a
Oh, yeah.
population of deer on the island, and they ask that you leave the apples for the deer.
Oh, yeah. I didn't read the
if
song.
you- If you do take some, take them from the higher branches that the deer can't reach,
Yeah.
and leave whatever you don't want there for the deer. Great. Questions?
I was following along on the map to see where you're at there. And Hope Island State Park is interesting because there's a few of them.
Yes, classic confusion, right? Which Hope Island are we talking about?
Right.
So if, on this chart, let's say Hope Island is this one right here. But there is another Hope Island that is also a Washington State Park. And Brett, where is it?
It's
Yeah, it's, just east of Deception Pass, in the Saratoga Passage.
It's a great place if you're waiting for
For the-
the black in
Oh.
Deception Pass, because you're
Oh, it's
less
like
than
a
30
mile?
minutes from Deception Pass with that. Yeah. So, and it's got a great hiking trail, a couple of kayaking campsites, beautiful spot. Yeah,
Well, it's a shame we couldn't have been more creative with names, huh?
yeah.
So if you go on the state website, they actually list it by region. To try to
Okay.
eliminate that confusion.
Yeah, that area all over down there is so empty. And there's houses here and there. If you go over there, it's pretty south. See like long, there's a lot of lights and then stars. That whole south
Yeah.
there is really pretty.
The stargazing is actually pretty darn good for being in the local area. Going to the mountains, you probably get better, but for being in Puget Sound, that's some of the better star viewing I've seen. Is all those cities far away. I didn't have any issues with bugs, did you?
Yeah, usually if you stay on the boat at anchor, there's enough breeze even, I mean, even this area isn't bad for mosquitoes and everything. And it's usually fresh water that that they breed in, not salt water. So even marshy salt water isn't gonna really make the mosquitoes that bad. I'm trying to remember if I've ever really been bothered by mosquitoes here in Puget Sound, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that why we live here instead of at the same time, right?
It's true, I have windows with no screens on, so.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Hope Island is, May is the biggest, month, because it does only 1 month, which, should be shut.
oh, okay,
I can imagine.
So I always go there,
okay. Yeah, we saw, along, what is that? Is it Pickering Passage?
The west side of Harstein.
Yeah, west
Yeah.
side of Harstein, we saw a lot of people digging up
yeah, only in
in May. But they must have been digging up something else, maybe goody
We
dogs,
got, shortage.
clam, I think they're digging.
Razor
clams. Yeah, and oysters, so, yeah, there's quite a bit of that going on. And I think that the Indian tribe has reservation.
Oh, yes, the
Right,
island that
so
is
it-
just east of Hope. So this,
Yeah, you see part of it there, that's all
here is
completely
actually,
undeveloped.
that entire island is, native.
Yeah,
There's no development there. It's completely owned by the tribes.
yeah, so if you're on the east side of Hope Island, you're like pretty much in the wilderness. It's sort of cool, but you go to the other side and then you see a whole bunch of houses.
Well, yeah, so this, Steamboat Island here to the west
Yeah.
is filled with homes.
Yeah.
There's quite a large one at the promontory on the point there.
Yeah. checking out the real estate.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't put it on the list, but we're talking about how unpopulated it is. The largest city is Olympia, of course, and it takes a little bit of work to get down there, but it's certainly worthwhile.
I actually, Olympia was, one of the things I also really enjoyed in South Sound.
Yeah,
And it's in contrast to many of the other places that are less built up. If frankly, many people from Seattle don't go to Olympia very much, but it's a nice town and it's all on the waterfront. So you can get a slip at one of the marinas there and you can walk to everything in town. You can walk to the Capitol. The
great
downtown,
restaurants.
yeah, so the downtown, there are no chains of any type. Everything is one-off, local. I don't know how they pulled that off, but there's a lot of good food. There's good stores. There's a children's museum. There's they made a museum at one of the water treatment facilities. You can learn about how water is made to be reused in the community and how to best protect that valuable resource. It's actually made it kind of fun. So there's a lot of great stuff that's right there, and it's an easy walk from the waterfront. So
Is it farmer's market? Is
The
it
farmer's market
daily or is it
is,
just on the weekends?
I think it's 4 days a week.
Okay,
I think it's Thursday through Sunday, and it's a great farmer's market. They have stalls, they have vendors for food that are there, and it's a really really nice nice treat for something that's after you've been on the boat and cooking over a little stove for several days. It's nice to have somebody else make a meal for you for a little bit and get fresh produce.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great
so-
place to reprovision and everything. We put it on one of our trips and we just sort of planned the reprovision at the mostly at the farmer's market.
If you don't, there's a grocery store like right on the water.
Right,
Yeah,
For
yeah,
it's
That's
right
right.
there between
right across from the yacht
Capitol,
club.
between
Yes.
Capitol Lake and the yacht club.
Yeah,
There's a
It's
store there.
nice.
Yeah,
yeah, so I think that Olympia is a great place to reprovision, but I guess, getting into the south side, of course, you have to go through the Narrows, so which leaves like Tacoma or Gig Harbor is a good gateway place to provision or change crews out or something.
Yep.
I think
How many days?
2 days is very easy. So from the Narrows, or I should say from Tacoma to Eagle Island is like 16 nautical miles. So that's a pretty easy day. And then from there to Olympia is still under 20. So, and that's even with the trip down Bud Inlet, which is very shallow on the east side, but there's an excellent channel on the west side because it's a substantial port for lumber. So they still have pretty good sized ships that come in there.
Yeah, I think last time we did South Sound, we planned on handing over the boat to Mike and Julie Jacobson, and we did that in Olympia. So we did, I think, one way, probably all the way from Renton all the way down to Olympia, just sort of working our way down. And I think that or maybe we started in one, I can't remember, it's been a while, and then they took the boats, I think, all the way back to Renton.
And
Great stuff.
Mike and Julie talked about coming back through the Narrows. They had a little bit of ebb with them, and I think they had 13 knots over the ground. Is that
Yes. Fastest
Yeah.
that boat's ever moved, except for maybe on a trailer. Yeah, not recommended.
Yeah, it's not the preferred way to go.
Yeah.
Slack is much better. But
When you go through Lake Union, usually goes under.
yeah, obviously Lake Union is very popular for sailing. But if you're just transiting through, it's not worth the effort to put the sails up and then just take them right back down because you're going from one channel through the lake and then back into another channel again.
Yeah, although I think one time when I had the wind behind us, I just unfurled the jib.
That's a good.
Yeah, and we sailed that day because we had a westerly, so it's like one jibe. And then right before going under the bridges, we furled it back up and started the engine. It's pretty easy to do, so.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time to get from here up and through the locks.
Yes.
There's, in the summertime, there's always a line at the locks. But then once you're out on the sound, say from Shilshole, you can easily get down to Tacoma in a day. And then from there, through the Narrows, you can make as many stops as you want. These were just 4 that
Oh, yeah.
people like.
Got the whole,
But there's so many other places to go. We went to Oro Bay on Anderson Island, there's also, which is,
did you
down.
get the anchor to
Oh, yeah,
set
we had
there?
great anchorage.
Or the inner bay,
No, we were on the outer bay.
oh, yeah, in the inner bay, we tried 5 times, I
Ugh.
think, and the anchor would get pulled.
So this one's good. Falusi Bay is over here, on the southern part of the Key Peninsula. Penrose Point State Park is up here. I'm blanking on the name of this island that's up here, but that's another state park. There's Boston Harbor that's just at the mouth of Bud Inlet. And there's Tolmy State Park, that's down here on the Nisqually Reach. So to me about lots of state parks. So yeah, tons and tons of places to go explore.
If you like shallow water, you can go through Hammersley Inlet all the way to Shelton.
Yeah. So this long narrow channel is the Hammersley Inlet. So
And it's like
and there's shoals the whole
50
way,
feet across in some places and stuff like that.
but the usable part is only about 20 feet,
Yeah,
right?
we actually sailed through Hammersley Inlet. It was 20 jibes. Yeah,
Oh, that's pretty good.
yeah, and I think we saw 8.6 knots of boat speed in the Catalina 27, yeah.
Great.
It was insane.
And then yes, Shelton is here, at the west end of that inlet.
Where to go. Set.
We did it last year. We had the Catalina in Des Moines for about a month and a half, and then the Ranger 24 was there for the remainder of the summer. And seemed like it was successful. One of the things that made it a success was the Catalina skippers chipped in to cover the moorage fees. Since we're basically subletting a slip that's there. But you know, the boat got used quite a lot there, and then when the Catalina went out for cruising for the summer, it was already through the locks. So that made jumping off a little bit easier for that first day. So yeah, if the skippers get together again, if they want to do it, I think it's a possibility.
I think that Catalina's been up in the San Juans the last 2 years, so maybe it's time to go back.
Could be
with
time
this
to go south again.
presentation. I think it's time for the South Sound or something like that, and with some handovers in Olympia and Gig Harbor or Tacoma. Tacoma is a cool place to go into if you go to, what's the waterway there where all the museums are?
The Foss Waterway.
Yeah, Foss Waterway, there's a marina all the way up at the very end. Pretty much empty, at least when we went there, and it was
And it's
like.
right there
fucking one
next
that
to-
was blowing a gale, and so we had an extra day, so we went to every single the glass museum, the.
Car Museum.
Yeah, the history
Yeah.
museum, the art museum, oh, it's great, yeah,
Yeah, people give Tacoma a hard time, but there's a lot of good stuff.
yeah. I'm totally going back to Tacoma and doing that again.
Only been there from the land side. It's spectacular.
Oh, and even better, when you are on Commencement Bay, Mount Rainier is just in full glory.
Yeah.
That area there, from the Narrows up in the almost absence, right behind, Vashon Island. And then also south of it, we had a lot of whale sightings.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we got to see a humpback whale way in the distance.
Humpback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and
wow,
there's
every once
killer
in a while.
whales down.
Yeah,
That's
Cool.
really cool.
John, you just saw some orcas off of,
twice in the last year.
yeah,
Yeah, just outside of Des Moines. Yeah, near 3 Point and, south of there. So
It's probably the same crew,
probably.
working their way up there.
Yeah. And out of, last summer, a video came out of them swimming, what's the?
they were in,
Tyee
Taiyi
Marina?
Marina.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that was like, that video came out the day after we saw them, so they must have
It
gone.
was definitely
to
the same
marina.
pond.
Yeah, and picked on all those harbor seals that hang out in there, so. Probably picked off a couple, I'm
I
sure.
hope so. They're obnoxious.
Yeah. Yeah, it sort of stinks when you're going out the exit of that one.
Well, great. I hope everybody's excited for the coming season. I know I am. There's so many great things and, this is, of course, talking about things outside the area, but even here at Lake Washington, on our dock, Renton Sailing, it's gonna be a great season. We have 2 new boats on the dock this year, which is really exciting, and, hopefully, lots of new people, will get out to sail. We're really looking forward to it. Any other thoughts, any other business for tonight?
Awesome. I'll hang out a little bit. I've got that cruising.
Oh, yeah,
guide.
we
People wanna look
got
at that.
charts, we got the cruising guide, lots of good stuff to pour over.
Answer some questions.
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. We'll adjourn the meeting.